time to join us today. And hopefully we'll consider submitting applications by the 15th of January. I'm Shaila Janamraju, and I'm the Senior Managing Director for Impact here at the Global Innovation Fund. And joining me today are my colleagues, Malcolm Spence, our MD for Grants and Public Sector, and Sarah Indarito, our MD for Climate Change. And they'll be shortly coming back online and speaking to the agenda in a few moments. I just wanted to give a little bit of a quick overview of the agenda, some housekeeping, and then we'll get a chance to kick off fully. So just in terms of the agenda, this is an hour's webinar, and we're going to use the first half hour to provide an overview of GIF and the Climate Resilience Fund. And then my colleague Malcolm will join in and speak a little bit more on our criteria and funding stages. And then finally, we'll be able to get Sarah to be able to discuss a little bit more about the climate open window themes. And this allows us a bit of an opportunity at 10:30 then to open up to a Q&A session, and I'll just give a quick housekeeping note on how to do that in a section. And hopefully at the end we'll get an opportunity to hear from you a little bit about. We have a small poll at the end that we'd like for you to participate on. We're hoping for this to close by 11, so and hopefully all your answers, or many of them, will have been answered by then. Just in terms of the Q&A session, we request participants to be able to scroll down on the Zoom control bar at the bottom, which will offer you options to write questions down. And importantly, we would like you to upvote on the questions you'd like to see the answers to. And during the presentations, we'll be able to answer some of these questions. And at the Q&A session, we'll take up the questions with the highest upvotes to begin with. And it allows us to be able to curate the questions a little bit more. And so without much further ado, let me just kickstart and say I'm really hoping that many of you have had a chance to look at the application pack very carefully. And so this is just an opportunity for us to give you a bit of an overview of GIF and the climate window. So let me just say a little bit around GIF. GIF is a non-profit multilateral investment vehicle. And it was established in 2014 by the US and UK governments. And it was a new initiative through which aid agencies could mobilize funding into innovative solutions to development and now climate change challenges. GIF can take greater risks. We provide flexible capital. We give grants to nonprofit organizations and research partners, but we can also provide equity, loans, and different types of blended finance vehicles. And we can do this across profit entities as well as other types of organizations with the view of trying to solve societal challenges. So that's just firstly and foremostly a little bit of our background. I think we've said this often: we find and fund innovations with the potential to transform the lives of people living on less than $5 a day. We have a very broad definition of innovations where new technologies, business models, policy practices, or behavioral insights are observed. We look for also approaches that are more cost effective than what's out there currently on the markets and in current practices. I think I highlighted, we are an impact first multilateral investment vehicle. So we take a pragmatic approach to our impact. We focus on the potential for impact on people's lives 10 years into the future, because we really believe that innovations take time to scale. And we start from a place of evidence on whether the investment works, what evidence can be generated through an innovation, and what we know about the evidence in other contexts. We back entrepreneurs and innovators with exciting ideas for change, and we support them on their pathways to impact at scale. I think the only other thing I was going to highlight is our sort of impact. We are an impact investing vehicle, and so we have a track record for doing that. And you can see that we have managed to, we've been working in 36 countries. We've invested nearly 120 million in investments. We're nearly up to 72, 73 innovations. And the way in which we look at our impact, which is the classic kind of a number around what is the numbers of people that we've reached, we expect to reach about 156 million by 2033. So looking far into the future, and we adjust that with our understanding of, what is the likelihood for impact to occur. We also look at the extent to which our impact will affect people's livelihoods. And it's kind of a unique way that we look at our impact. So we do both the breadth of impact and we look at the depth of impact, which is the extent to which our impact will improve the lives. And we have a unique way of measuring that. And we don't need to get that into great detail here, but some of the ways in which we project our impacts are to do with how we look at the social value that we create, the extent to which our investments are creating social value benefits as a measure of dollars. So $6 of attributed benefits to every dollar that we've invested. We're also interested in the extent to which we've mobilized additional capital, and we believe strongly we've done close to $10 mobilized capital for every dollar that we've invested. I will move on very rapidly just to talk a little bit about the climate resilience fund. And I suppose the only other thing for me to say here is that, post COP29, we got a reminder again that the world is on the brink of surpassing its targets to limit global warming. And so I can see that a number of you participants, this is not something I need to go into any great detail, but we do know that even if all the current climate change commitments were fully delivered upon, there'd still be 2 to 3 degrees Celsius temperature increases. This is going to have a profound effect on food and water security, on health. We're going to start to see increases in the frequency of shocks. And frankly, the developing countries will be bearing the heaviest burden on climate adaptation. We know that they're already experiencing acute impacts of climate change, and it's due to an interplay of factors, including their geographical and climate conditions, their dependency on natural resources, and their limited capacity to adapt to a changing climate. So, we recognize that adaptation efforts are especially critical for marginalized and vulnerable groups, including women and girls, women and younger children, older populations, ethnic minorities, indigenous populations, refugees, displaced persons. And, these are all people that are disproportionately affected by climate change. So in this rapidly warming world, climate adaptation goes hand in hand with the emission reductions if we're going to try to secure a livable future and really enable sustainable development. For GIF, this is really closely aligned to our core mission because we accelerate innovation that improves the livelihoods of millions of the world's poorest people, and poverty is a key driver of vulnerability, making both countries and individuals susceptible to climate change impacts. So through this Innovating for Climate Resilience sub-fund, GIF will invest through a range of our instruments, grants, equity, and debt. And we're going to invest in innovations with the potential to scale and support the world's poorest to adapt to climate change and build in order to build resilience. So that's all I was going to say. We've supported 73 investments to date, and this dedicated call is looking to unlock critical investments in adaptation and resilience. So without much more without further ado, let me just hand this over to Malcolm, who will run through the criteria and funding stages. Thank you.
Thanks, Shailaja. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Malcolm Spence. I'm the Managing Director for Grants at the Global Innovation Fund, based here in our main office in London in the UK. I'm just going to take a few moments to talk through GIF's investment thesis and how it lives in our criteria. So In a nutshell, GIF is looking for innovations which stand to make the biggest difference for the largest number of people living in poverty. So what we're looking for is solutions which show some early promise that have a way of being a better solution to the problem they're taking on than what's already out there, and have a plan for long run success of how it can scale and be sustained at scale. And we want to use our investment to help move these innovations along that journey towards scale. So we want to use our funding to put in place more of the conditions needed for success. It could be achieving growth or developing the business model, looking at different distribution channels, making sure that there's more rigorous evidence of the climate adaptation benefits that are needed. And we describe this role that we play as the process of de-risking an innovation, putting in place more of the conditions needed for long-run success. And this mindset is the cornerstone of innovation funding as we see it. And on the bottom of this slide, you can see this mental model that we use to help inform our decisions. We are looking for solutions that can reach large numbers. That's the breadth of an innovation. Can deliver significant benefits. That's the depth. And have a realistic probability of achieving success, of achieving that reach and delivering those impacts over a 10-year period of time. So we have in our mind, as we review your applications, what's likely to maximize this equation. Some of the innovations that we support are very, very high depth, but reach a smaller number of people, and others are reach millions of people, but with quite a marginal benefit. But the key is we're looking to almost kind of maximize this equation. So let me elaborate on this just with reference to our core funding criteria. So first and foremost, it's really important that your innovation is aimed at bringing benefits to people on less than $5 a day. That's still our kind of core mandate here, is to bring those benefits. And for this call, we're looking for those benefits to be easily understood or easily characterized as climate adaptation and resilience outcomes. And that's something that Sarah will say a little more about in a moment. Thereafter, we have these 4 core criteria: innovation, evidence, scalability, and additionality. And I'm going to speak to each one by one. Innovation is perhaps the easiest to understand. Here, our definition is really broad. It can be anything at all: a product, a service, a business model, a policy practice, anything at all. The way we define innovation is that anything which has the potential to deliver more cost-effective benefits for people in poverty at scale. So we're looking at things that are different and better from what's already out there. And by better, we mean it could be more impactful, it could be more cost-effective, it could be easier to scale or more likely to scale. And just the comment here is that because we are focused on scale, it doesn't need to be super high tech. Often simpler or less complex solutions are easier to scale within the developing economies and markets in which we operate. So for innovations, we're looking for novel approaches which are not already widely practiced. Next criteria for us is impact. For us to invest, it's really important that we believe that your innovation can deliver adaptation outcomes or resilience outcomes. And ideally, your impact case would be based on evidence, either from your own work or from other projects or from academic studies. But we know the climate adaptation field is nascent. Many of the solutions are untested. The literature on what works isn't as deep as it might be in certain other sectors, especially for new approaches. But for us here, it's just really important that you can point to the factors that give you confidence that it's likely to make an impact. So here, I often use the phrase like reasons to believe as a substitute for evidence. Like, why should we believe that your innovation is likely to succeed? What do we know from similar models or past experience? Can we get confidence from how the solution has been developed, or even the track record of the team? So all of these things can be considered reasons to believe. But the number one thing is that it must be believable and credible that your innovation can in fact deliver the kind of benefits that you hope for. The third solution is scalability. So we are looking for innovations which can potentially benefit large number of people. So if you're focused on only a kind of a small locality, or your innovation is only really likely to work in one place, then we're not really the best funder for that work. It would fall short in our criteria. There's lots of different ways that an innovation can achieve scale, and we're open to a wide variety, scaling commercially, shaping or influencing markets, adoption by government, or influence of policies. We have some social enterprises, social franchises, and even like mass media or digital interventions within our portfolio. The important thing here is that scale is feasible. It's politically feasible, it's operationally feasible, and crucially, it's financially feasible. So if you're scaling commercially, you don't need to be profitable now, but you should have a credible case for how you're going to reach profitability. Similarly, if you're scaling via a non-profit pathway or through adoption by government, it's equally important to think about finance, like how much will the innovation cost and how will these costs be covered at scale. So for scalability, we're looking for a sense of operational, political, and financial feasibility. And lastly, we have additionality. So for this criteria, GIF wants to know that we want to know whether our investment is really needed and what difference it will make. So we want to have a good sense that you have a plan for how our funding can help move you along in that journey towards scale. The most compelling propositions for GIF are those where our funding is targeted most to what's really needed in order to succeed. So you might find that a government is interested in your innovation, but they might want to see more evidence before they adopt it, or an investor might want to see higher revenues before they invest. These are just examples, but the key here is that there's a compelling, like, so what, or compelling, like, what next? If we invest and we help you in this period, what does that unlock for you in terms of your long run vision of success? And that's how we define additionality. It's really crucial. I wanted to talk a little bit about the funding stages that we have. Now, obviously, different innovations are at different stages in their journey towards scale. And we have these three main buckets: pilot, test and transition, and scale. And you can see on the screen at the moment the funding limits that we have at these different areas. And our criteria that I've just described, they flex a little bit across these different criteria. So the next slide has a little bit more detail on what we're looking for in each of the three areas. So firstly, we have pilots where we can invest up to $230,000, and that's really just for proof of concept. So at this stage, you probably don't have a lot of evidence, but you have a good case for why your innovation might be an impactful solution, and you want to test some of the foundational underlying assumptions. So this is the stage for you. A quick comment on scale at the pilot level. You don't have to have the scale pathway all figured out at pilot stage, but you must have some idea of what scale could look like. So it might be that it's a cost-effective solution, or there's a policy window that means that it can be adopted. But you must have some sense that it's feasible, that it's possible. Again, all the pieces of the puzzle, they don't need to be in place at this moment in time, but it can't just be a guess or an aspiration that scale must come around. Chris, I wanted to ask you to move to the next slide where we just have a little bit more detail on these different stages as I talk through them. The test and transition stage is where you've already done some initial testing, you have some evidence under your belt, and you're trying to figure out what's really needed for scale to come around. So our investments at this stage are usually focused on growth, reaching more people that stand to benefit, innovating on the operating model, or generating more rigorous evidence that your innovation is impactful. So GIF has funded, for example, a lot of randomized evaluation, and that typically falls under the test and transition phase. Lastly, we have scale investment. This is where you've got the evidence locked in, you're pretty set on how it will scale, and our funding is need to make it happen. We don't do so much at the scale phase, to be honest. I think if all the evidence is in place and you have a scale plan ready to go, it might be that There are other funders that are better placed to make this happen, but occasionally we see innovations at this stage where we think that we can play a key role in initiating that scale process. And in fact, we can invest up to $15 million at the scale phase. That's our investment stages. I wanted, before handing to Sarah to talk a little bit more about climate themes, I wanted just to talk about the application process. So our team review and discuss all of the applications that we receive within 2 months of submission. If your application's unsuccessful, you will have usually heard with us within 2 months. If we're usually those that we think are the most promised, we have to do a little bit more research or deliberation or consideration. So if it's longer than 2 months, it's probably because we're interested and we're thinking about it. The next stage is that if you pass the initial stage, a member of our team will reach out to arrange a call to meet with you and learn a little bit more about your work to complete our initial assessment. Now, we do receive many more applications than it's possible for us to support. And, you know, these initial decisions are often made on a judgment call. You know, how solid is the evidence base? How many people is it likely to benefit? And how credible is the scale pathway? But I should also say it's not uncommon for us to say, well, maybe not now, but let's keep in touch, and an opportunity might come along in the future if you're able to grow a little bit or put in place more of the things that we look for to fulfill our criteria. If we move forward into further diligence, your proposal is reviewed first by our investment committee and then by a decision panel once our due diligence is completed. We can't be an expert in every sector in every country, so one of the unique features of GIF is that we have external experts join our decision panels to help advise us on funding decisions. And another one of our unique features of our investment process is that you as applicant teams would be asked to join both the investment committee and the decision panel to answer questions from the process. End to end, this process takes between 6 and 9 months. At this stage, we're limited in the advice that we can provide. You know, there's really high demand for our funding. There's a lot of interest, but I wanted to reassure you that if we do decide to move forward, it's very much a collaborative process, and our team can advise on what we think makes the best use of funds or the strategies that you're using to achieve scale and what's likely to be most compelling for GIF and the best solution for you in your innovation. So thanks again for your interest in this application window, and over to Sarah to say a little bit more about how this applies in the climate adaptation space.
Thank you, Malcolm. And thank you, everybody. I can see the Q&A platform is very, very busy. Keep the questions coming, and we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. So my name is Sarah Nderitu, Director Climate based in Nairobi. So for this last section, I will walk you through some of the themes that we are focusing on for this call. But before I begin, a very quick note is that we are looking at a number of themes, but we look forward to seeing some of your applications that align with our themes, but we are very conscious and very mindful that climate challenges are incredibly diverse, and there are so many local contexts and nuances that might not be fully captured by our guidance. So we are really strongly encouraging our applicants to propose original context-specific solutions that align, of course, with our themes, but also some that address gaps or opportunities that we may have overlooked. We are a learning organization. We will have other climate calls, and we are very keen to ensure that all the sectors are covered. So allow me to dive in. I will not go through the whole list so that we can allow enough time for Q&A. I can see a number of questions that have already come in. So let's dive in. Our first theme is on nature-based solutions. We are very keen to receive applications looking at nature-based solutions. And the reason is because of the multiple co-benefits that nature-based solutions provide, including helping vulnerable populations to adapt to climate risks, such as sea level rise, drought, while at the same time being able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also capture soil carbon. But also we are seeing that despite this great potential, we are seeing a very small fraction of global climate finance. less than 2% that is supporting nature-based solutions for adaptation. So we are very keen to start supporting, develop some evidence out of the space and also fund some innovations. So for this call, we are keen in innovations that have a direct impact on the poorest across all types of ecosystems. Some great examples that we are starting to currently see are mangrove restoration to protect coastal communities from storm surges, or others on reforesting degraded land to improve water quality or reduce soil erosion. We will be looking at nature-based solutions, not just from an environment conservation angle, but we'll be looking at how your solution or your innovation is able to directly impact the poorest. So when you're looking at your solution or your innovation, kindly remember to weave in how you're impacting the poorest populations within the context you're working. The next thing that we're very excited about is climate and health. And we are seeing extreme weather events, heat waves, droughts, floods. We are seeing them now being a real global health threat. And of course, they have the greatest impact on vulnerable populations living in poverty. So for this call, we'll be looking out for innovations addressing the rising burden of diseases such as vector-borne diseases, waterborne diseases, zoonotic diseases. We'll also be keen to look at solutions to health supply chain disruptions that limit access to life-saving medicine and vaccines, especially in remote areas. Some of the solutions around getting health supplies, medical help to especially remote areas, especially during a climate event. And also just tied to that is also innovations that ensure medical care is still available. For example, when there's a flood or a storm. And we are also seeing health facilities that are starting to be destroyed because of floods, storms, and we're also looking at whether we have solutions that can be able to safeguard some health facilities from these climate threats. One that is currently emerging that is also exciting to us is solutions that are addressing mental health impacts, such as stress and trauma that are caused by climate-related disasters. So we are keen to see what kind of innovations are being developed to support vulnerable populations on mental health space in relation to, of course, climate change. Another sector that all of us are working on, I know a big percentage of us will be working on agriculture and food security, so I won't spend much time on this. And this is because it's a broad theme, and I know most of us are working here, and a lot of work has gone into this space, but we are just scratching the surface, to be honest, because of the immense needs of the sector. We are also conscious that the sector is directly linked to climate, and when we look at the evidence, it's telling us that in another 25 years, in 2050, and with the population increase of 9.5 billion, agriculture production will reduce to 17%. So this is a sector that we will continue to support. And for this call, we are looking to support scalable, climate-resilient innovations that address critical challenges, both in the livestock systems and also food systems. So this could be innovations in early warning systems, for pests, diseases, droughts, floods, solutions to optimize water, nutrient management. Regenerative agriculture is one that is quite exciting. Innovations promoting climate smart livestock management, for example, for the climate sector. And we are also looking at some of the solutions that are available to diversify pastoral livelihoods. And this is agriculture and food security. The list could go on and on. So kindly send us, make sure to apply, especially if you're working in this sector. I know there are other solutions that we have not covered. The other exciting sector is urban resilience. And where we are keen to look at this theme is because data is telling us that by 2050, cities will be home to about a third of the world's population. And we are also seeing that 70% of our urban areas are already being affected or at risk of climate effects, whether it's heating or flooding. So for this call, we are looking to partner with solutions that can address urban challenges such as flooding, innovations that can support infrastructure to withstand extreme temperatures, solve the challenge of urban heat island effect. Also solutions are supporting informal settlements, especially those that are particularly vulnerable because maybe they're located in a hazard-prone area, for example, next to a river or coast floodplains. Next slide, Chris. I think I'll only pick one from this slide just because we can't go on and on. But I'll urge you to also look at our our criteria. The one that I want to look at is anticipatory or early action for climate shocks. And some of us like to call them early warning systems. And here we are keen to look at innovations that are able to protect vulnerable populations before a climate shock occurs. In this space, our solutions could address key challenges such as improving the accuracy and timeliness of forecasts. We are currently funding an innovation like this in Philippines, and I'll provide this. I'll show you a sample of an innovation that we are supporting. Early warning systems, especially those that expand access to underserved areas and take account of the local context. We know that a lot of the early warning systems, the most vulnerable communities cannot be able to access them. So we'll be looking at whether we have some solutions that are able to expand access to underserved areas and also take account to local context and vulnerable groups, among others. Why this sector is very interesting to us is the studies are starting to show that early warning systems can help provide up to tenfold return on investment by preventing losses during and even before extreme weather events. We have other themes that I won't dive in. Water security is one broad one, and we'll be looking at innovations that build resilience to water systems, to climate shocks. Social protection is one. If we had a bit of time, I would have wanted to delve into that. Innovations that strengthen social safety nets. Gender equality, solutions that address unique vulnerability faced by women and marginalized groups and are worsened by climate shocks. So we'll be keen to also see some innovations in the gender equality space. But I'll also urge you, when you're looking at your innovations or the solutions that you have on your programs, is to also check on how gender equality is being embedded in some of your solutions. So we'll encourage you to review our application guideline. It has all this information. We provide a complete breakdown and a rationale behind each of the themes that we are looking at. But we know that we haven't covered everything. And if the area that you're working on has not been listed, we are welcoming you to still apply and invite you to propose solutions that address gaps that we may have overlooked. So we look forward to seeing some of the applications that come through. Our next slide is just a sample of some of the projects that we have funded. And one of the innovations that we are supporting through a grant is a social enterprise called Build Change. And it is working in resilient housing in Indonesia. So this would cover the urban resilience space. Indonesia experiences consistently high temperatures and heat waves, and extreme heat increases the risk of heat strokes. But this is even worsened, especially by poor house designs, construction and maintenance, which often results in indoor temperatures. Sometimes they exceed safe thresholds, especially in Indonesia and in the community that Build Change is working in. And we are seeing that low-income households, they would not have an extra stream of income to make their homes climate resilient. So the innovation here is what Build Change has done. So Build Change has partnered with Komida. This is one of Indonesia's largest microfinance institution, and they're developing and offering loans that will enable members of this MFI to invest in their homes, make their homes more climate resilient. And the target for this innovation or this project is female entrepreneurs who are working from home, were especially affected when indoor temperatures rise. So what Build Change has done is that they've developed a digital platform that allows loan officers of Komida to analyze the vulnerability of the households, generate recommendations on improvements, climate improvements. They're also able to analyze the homeowners' buying and repayment capacity, and also allows homeowners and the loan officers to monitor the construction when the loan is provided, and also ensure quality of the houses that, maybe the refurbishments that are being made. So they ensure that the loan is actually put to good use, and the loan is actually used for climate to build climate resilience. So through our investment, which is a grant, Build Change will support Komida, which is the MFI, to scale the model and also offer loans across about three 305 branches. And for this, they'll aim to enable about 2,000 women members to invest in their homes and make them more climate resilient. But because GIF, we are also keen on generating evidence, we'll also focus on generating some learnings on the viability and effectiveness of these loans, which we are calling the incremental climate adaptation loans. So we are still early in the project, so we will be keen to publish some of those findings. Our next innovation that we have supported is in the Philippines. And we are supporting through a credit facility. And this is a climate and weather data intelligence company called Comunidad, and it's based out of Philippines. And why Philippines is because Philippines is one of the world's most disaster-prone countries due to its location and its physical geography. On average, it experiences about 20 tropicals an year, frequent flooding, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, heat waves. And due to climate change, then the country is experiencing these disasters, even with greater frequency and intensity than ever before. So innovation here is Comunidad, the company has started to offer 3 products. One to public sector clients, and the first one is a software as a service product that is designed for government officials. And the software is able to monitor hazards and also provide forecasts. An early warning system delivered through web and mobile software. The second product that is still provided through the public sector, through the government, is an AI-based driven mobile application that is capable of sending early warning messages in bulk. So communities are able to get SMSs when there is an impending cyclone or a heat wave, and they're able to it ensures that communities are alerted very promptly on an impending climate threat, and they're able to take action. And the third product is also, because this is a for-profit company, they're targeting a private clients, such as energy companies, to provide access to accurate weather and environmental data intelligence. So our investment here is a credit facility that will support the government to deliver, the government of Philippines through this company to deliver on its disaster preparedness strategy. I wanted to leave some time for question and answer, but that's all from my end on some of the themes we are looking at. They're not cast on stone, so we are looking also to receiving some of the applications you may have, especially on the themes that we've not covered. I'll now hand over to Malcolm to start off the Q&A session.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, excellent. We have got lots of questions. I'm going to do my best to try and speak to those and triage them across the team. I'm going to start just by looking at some of those where members of the panel have been typing responses and have been already answered, but with significant upvotes. So first of all, there was a question from Doreen around an innovation which operates in multiple countries. Yes, that is very much acceptable to GIF. The application form only permits entering one country at the moment, so we just want to focus or understand the country where the innovation has the biggest presence. But yes, it is acceptable or even encouraged to have an innovation which has a wide applicability across different geographies. Expected timeline of funding, can we submit a 3-year proposal? Yes, it really depends on the innovation and where you're at in the scaling journey. We have made some investments that are less than a year, and we have made investments that are 5 years long. It depends on what's needed or what you're trying to achieve in this particular phase. But I think that's an example of something that GIF, if your application moves forward, that we would work with you on, we would collaborate and say what's the right level of ambition, or what's the right duration and set of activities. So that was a question from Doreen. Rory had asked an important question about how does GIF apply the less than $5 a day criterion. So this is typically, we want to make sure that our investments are targeted towards the poorest and the most vulnerable. And typically what we look for is that a significant proportion of the population that stands to benefit is earning less than $5 a day at purchasing power parity. And as applicants, we don't expect you to have direct measurement of income levels of people that may stand to benefit. You can use secondary sources. But the idea is that we should have a high level of confidence that they will be reached, they will be able to access, and they will be able to benefit from your innovation. And there's another question from Rory on, do projects focusing on gender and education fit within our funding priorities for this window? At the moment, this window is only focused on climate adaptation and resilience. Now, there are interventions that are gendered or based in the education sector that can be considered adaptation and resilience outcomes, but we're looking for things where really the primary purpose, the main goal relates to resilience and adaptation capabilities for climate vulnerable populations. Okay, let me pull out a couple more. But lots of people asking, is this the only opportunity, or will we have a window again later in 2025? This is the first time in 10 years that GIF has had a window focused on climate adaptation. So this is a test run for us. We want to see the kind of applications that we get in, but this is a long run strategic priority for GIF, and I think that it's very likely that we will have recurrences of this in 2025 and future years. But it might not take the exact form of this, where it's an experiment for us to see how it runs. Okay, let me look at some of the most upvoted questions then. Will we get a recording? I think we're likely to circulate the slides, but not the video from this presentation. I really want to emphasize that all of the information that you need to prepare your application is on our website. Joshua asked a question, what has been GIF's annual success rate among your applicants? So this is a good question, Joshua. First of all, each year the Global Innovation Fund makes around about between 5 and 15 investments. We're very selective. It's a very competitive process. And that means that we do receive many more applications than we're able to process. In this instance, or we're able to accept, I should say. This is one of the motivating factors between changing our window to be a little bit more focused this time around on climate adaptation. We want to make sure, and one of the reasons behind doing this webinar as well, to try and give you the information that you need to make a judgment call in advance and investing time in an application about the extent to which it marries up with our criteria. So every year, yeah, we make around between, say, 5 and 12 investments. We've made 12 investments this year. And around about half of those are sourced through our open window. So it is a very selective process. Let me move down through the other upvoted questions. I've spoken already about $5 a day. There's a question about organizational overheads. So I've seen this question come up a couple of times. The answer is yes, we do have an overhead and indirect cost policy. And that policy says that if you're a for-profit organization, we don't typically cover indirect costs. If you're a university, the indirect cost that we would cover is a maximum of 12.5%. And for non-profit organizations, we look for true cost recovery. We look to cover all of the incidental or indirect costs that you incur as a proportion of your operations. But again, at this instance, at this stage in the process, we're not asking you for a full budget. We're not asking you for your overhead costs. At this stage, it's just very much about trying to understand the climate problem that you're trying to take on and your innovation, why you think that it's likely to succeed or scale. Okay, let me see if I can pull out a couple more. Are voluntary carbon market projects eligible? Sarah, is that something that you could speak to briefly?
Yes, actually, I was just typing in a similar question on somebody who is working on more than one theme. Yes, we welcome carbon projects, as long as you're able to indicate how they are able to build resilience, especially on our target communities. We are currently just looking at some of the projects that are doing this. And if you look at our website, you can see what Bumbitra has done. Is a project that is doing regenerative agriculture, supporting farmers to adopt regenerative agriculture practices, but paying them for it. And how they're paying them for it is through carbon credits, through soil carbon. Soil carbon is able to get a good market price, a good price in the market. So yes, we support carbon projects as long as you're able to indicate how they're able to build resilience, especially over our smallholder farmers. Have a look at Bumitra, and we also have a few more that are coming that we should be able to publicize maybe before the end of the year or in early January. So yes, what I can also say is we also look out for projects that have both mitigation and adaptation co-benefits. So anyone who's also working across a number of themes, that is also welcome to us, as long as they're speaking to our target population and they're building, they're building resilience and helping communities to adapt. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. I just want to encourage participants to use the upvote function to bring the kind of the most asked questions to the top of the pile. Let me refresh here. Are applicants expected to provide cost share? Eleanor, maybe you can elaborate on what's meant by that. I wonder if that's the same as the indirect cost that we talked about a moment ago.
Another question, Malcolm, that keeps coming up is also on consortium of partners, or just whether it's possible to apply for this funding as a consortium of partners, or it's just for single applicants.
Yes, consortium are able to apply. We recognize the value of partnership. And there's a question in the application form that asks about your model and includes there you should elaborate on the roles of the different partners, as well as when we ask about your team and why they're well placed to execute. But yes, consortium are eligible to apply, and you should apply under a lead organization.
Can organizations submit more than one proposal for this call?
Yes. Yes, you may. You can submit a proposal for as many different innovations as you would like.
Yeah. And a number of them on consortiums. Yes, we encourage consortiums. Also, a number of our projects are also consortiums of also universities, research institutions, and also NGOs. Those kind of consortiums are really encouraged just because of our evidence base. So we begin to look out for consortiums. So I will answer Swarup's question on, of the 8 themes presented, is there one or few themes that GIF is most interested in funding? We work across multiple themes. Yes, I'm sure you can see from my presentation, nature-based solutions is one that we are really, really keen to build our expertise on. It's a theme that is really evolving. We are really keen on this. Urban resilience is also another that we're very keen on, and also climate and health. But of course, we can't do away with agriculture just because of where we work and the geographies that we work in, the countries we work in. They depend highly on agriculture. So Rupi will be keen to see the multiple themes you're working in, especially if they cross some of our eight themes. But also, let's get creative. Even if your theme is not mentioned, let's see what you have. So kindly put in your application. A lot of you are working on multiple themes. So I think that's something that we'll be able to articulate a bit clearer in our next call. So thanks for putting those questions across. Thanks, Nicholas. Actually, we have a frequently asked question section in our website, but there are a lot of interesting questions in this chat, as Nicholas is saying. Will you compose an FAQ based on this? Yes, definitely. We'll ensure that our FAQ section is beefed up with a number of these questions, especially because this is our first climate dedicated call. So our FAQ is not really tweaked to a climate window. So we'll ensure that we glean on some of these questions. So keep them coming. Even if they're not answered here, you will see them appearing in our FAQ section on our website.
Very interesting question was posed on whether or not we accept applications in French. Malcolm will be able to understand this. We definitely operate and work in French countries. And there's multiple people here who could probably respond on your French applications, but we will probably have them internally translated as well. I don't know if you've ever received them, Malcolm, in multiple languages before.
Yeah, at the moment we're only able to accept applications in English, and I think that's to avoid errors of translation on our part. There are a number of different readers that are required to go through your materials, and we are an organization that operates in the English language. Let me see, we've got hundreds of questions here. I'm just trying to see if there are any critical questions.
There's an interesting question by Prabhu Singh, which was around, is the multi-country focus mandatory? And I think the point is the call for application mentioned having a wider regional focus, and we do encourage applications where the where scale is considered across multiple countries, and there's a credible narrative around that. So the multi-country focus is not mandatory, but a scale proposition that considers multi-countries is encouraged. There's a question here about whether we typically fund research ideas, and I think we would say it's probably too soon and not what we would do. We encourage sort of innovations that have already had some level of testing in a real world scenario. But Malcolm, you could probably answer.
Yeah, I think the key point here is we're an innovation fund. So when we make an investment, we're investing in an innovation, and that is very much a what. It's not a how. So we're not looking to invest in research, which is exploratory. Usually when we invest in research, it's to ascertain the impact or benefits or feasibility of a given innovation. So that's a really important point, in that we're looking for solutions. We don't typically invest in exploratory work to figure out what the solution might be. We're looking for things where there's already a sense of what it looks like, and innovators are looking to put a little bit more meat on the bone about how it can achieve its goals. Just a final comment, because we haven't talked about it, is relates to eligibility. There's some questions around non-profits and what type of funding that we provide. So we're open to a wide variety of applicants, non-profits, for-profits, academic institutions. We do award both grants and risk capital, debt and equity investments. So we're looking to use the right instrument for the right business model. If there is a revenue model for your business, or you're looking to raise risk capital, we're most likely to use a risk capital instrument, whether debt and equity. Although we recognize that occasion, particularly in the startup phase, you might need some concessional capital or some grant capital to reach there. So for early stage businesses, we can consider grant capital. Alternatively, if you're a private company and you're working on public goods, if you're working within government systems, or you're producing research that benefits the whole sector and not just your company, then we can consider grant financing in that circumstance also. And these are covered on the FAQs on our website as well. I know we haven't been able to cover all of the questions, but I think that we're at time now. I wanted just to take a moment to thank everyone for interest in the fund. To reiterate that the guidance for what we're looking for is detailed on the apply pages of the website and repeated throughout the course of the application form. Do look at the guidance carefully on what it is that we're looking for, and we're really grateful that you're interested in our fund and have taken the time to join the webinar today to pose your questions and hear a little bit more on our criteria and how they apply to climate adaptation and resilience. Sarah, Shailaja, is there any final comment from yourself?
No, thank you very much. I think as we are sending the deck, we will also send you a PDF on just the guidance, because I can see also a few of you have asked for a Word version or a PDF. So we'll ensure that we also send you that to allow you to look at the questions, interact with the questions before you start to build your application. Thanks.
No, and I was just going to say thanks very much for everyone who has joined. As you can see, we are we seek innovations from almost anywhere, as long as we think that it's really addressing a clear sort of climate and a vulnerability that we think that the innovation is, has got a sort of feasibility to scale. So there's a lot of questions on the bars around, do we do specific type of instruments or specific type of organizations? As Malcolm said, we have wide flexibility on the types of organizations, the type of instruments, the type of business models. It really does come down to a strong innovation, a clear addressable market with a target market that is addressing, for poor and vulnerable, and a climate, a very, very strong understanding of how this benefits the climate vulnerability of the geography that you're looking for. So hopefully there's enough on the website and the Q&A that we will circulate as well will be able to help you. And yeah, I see it. More questions still coming in. I don't know what happens to the call when the questions end. I don't know if anybody else can respond on that, but hopefully the answers we provided will provide enough of an overview for yourselves. Thank you very much again.